You know that star at the center of our solar system? The one that's about 150 million kilometers away? Well, it has direct, dramatic, and absolute power over every single HF radio link on this planet. It's not just some constant source of light and heat. No, it's a dynamic, powerful variable that can, in an instant, just silence your entire network. Let's dig into how that happens.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. For those of you who've been following along, this is part 13 of our big 20-part explainer series. We're breaking down the RFI Detective's technical report on radio frequency propagation. And today, we are tackling one of the most powerful and frankly disruptive forces you're ever going to face in your work, solar flares.
And the stakes here are incredibly high. The source material puts it perfectly. Ignoring what the sun is up to isn't just some theoretical blind spot. For any of us working with HF systems, it is a critical operational risk. Understanding this connection is absolutely essential.
All right, so to really get a grip on the impact down here on Earth, we first have to look up, way up, and see what's actually happening on the sun itself. Let's break down the anatomy of a solar flare.
It's the key question, right? We see the effects on our end, the dropped signals, the dead air, the chaos, but what is the actual physical event that kicks this whole thing off?
And it's just as dramatic as it sounds. We're talking about a localized, massive explosion in the sun's atmosphere that unleashes this just tremendous burst of energy. You can almost think of it like a short circuit in the sun's magnetic field, one that lets loose a torrent of radiation out into space.
Now, a flare throws a lot of stuff out there. But for us, in the world of HF propagation, these are the two main culprits we're worried about. We've got intense X-rays and extreme ultraviolet radiation. You'll see it called EUV. This is the stuff that's going to directly mess with our atmosphere.
And here's the kicker. It gets here fast. Traveling at the speed of light, this radiation burst crosses that 150 million kilometer gap in just a little over 8 minutes. That number is so important because it means we have practically zero warning time between the event on the sun and the effect on your radio links.
So let's trace the journey real quick. It starts with that massive explosion erupting on the sun's surface. That eruption fires off a blast of X-rays that travel at light speed. And just a few minutes later, bam, that radiation slams into the upper layers of our atmosphere, specifically the ionosphere.
Okay, so we've got the cause down. Now let's talk about the effect. What happens when that blast of radiation actually hits Earth's atmosphere? Well, this is where we get the dreaded phenomenon known as a short-wave fade-out.
The technical term for this whole mess is a sudden ionospheric disturbance, or SID for short. What's happening is that the intense X-rays from the flare punch deep into the ionosphere, all the way down to the D layer, and they cause this massive, sudden spike in its ionization. The D layer basically gets supercharged.
And here's the bottom line. That supercharged D layer is an absolute disaster for HF radio. It triggers a widespread, almost instantaneous communications blackout across the entire sunlit side of the planet. Yep, if your link path is in daylight, it's in danger.
This slide here really shows you the why. Okay, so under normal daytime conditions, the D layer is no big deal. It's kind of weak, and our HF signals punch right through it to get up to the F layer where they can get reflected. But during an SID, that huge blast of X-rays makes the D layer intensely ionized and dense. It essentially turns it into a thick absorptive blanket. So now our radio waves get soaked up completely. The signal never even reaches the F layer. It's just gone.
And the timeline for one of these events is just brutal. The fade-out is immediate. The second that radiation hits, the blackout starts. The outage can last anywhere from a few minutes to several hours, and it all depends on how big the flare was. And the recovery? It isn't like flipping a switch. It's this slow, gradual, and often frustrating process as the D layer calms down and your paths hopefully start to open up again.
So what does this all mean for us? The people who actually have to design, operate, and maintain these systems. Well, that brings us to our final and maybe most important point. This isn't just fascinating science class stuff. It is a core competency for any serious HF professional. The source document calls it an operational imperative, and that hits the nail on the head. You have to understand this relationship to build resilient systems and to troubleshoot them when they go down. And it leads to a golden rule. Never, ever blame the equipment during a big X-class flare. It's not the radio's fault. So I'll leave you with this to think about in your own work. When you're planning a network, when you're calculating a link budget, do you treat the sun as just some static, predictable constant? Or do
do you treat it as what it really is, the most powerful and the most critical variable in your entire system? Because honestly, the answer to that question can make all the difference.